Good morning. Please stand for the posting of the colors and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Color guard, halt. Seat colors. Present arms.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms. Center, face.
Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
From ancient times, our faith has called us to give thanks at all times. For our founder, St. Ignatius Loyola, gratitude was the most fundamental of faith practices. Gratitude towards God and to our sisters and brothers who make our lives possible. Today, we are especially grateful for our new building, and we thank God for this beautiful structure, which will allow us to continue the work that Father Larkin began in 1847 at the service of the Church, the Society of Jesus, and our city. We are especially thankful on this occasion for the presence of Mike Fernandez. We thank him for his generosity and his deep love for Xavier, which made this hall possible, a hall which bears his name and that of Father Fernandez-Duminuco, who taught and mentored Mike when he was a student here. We ask God's blessings on Mike, on his work, and on his family. We thank God for our seniors present here today and for all our students, current and future, and for whom this building was made. And we give thanks for our president, Jack Wyslowski, for having the vision and the grit to see this project through to its beautiful conclusion. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Good morning and welcome. Mr. Fernandez, on behalf of all students, faculty, and staff, especially those gathered here this morning, it is an honor to welcome you back home to Xavier. In particular, it is an honor and a privilege to have you with us in this great space that bears your name and the name of your headmaster during your time here, Fernandez-Duminuco Hall. This building stands as a living reminder to all of us the importance and lasting impact of the relationship between a student and his mentor. Thank you for this gift. We are most grateful for your investment in us as students, leaders, and sons of Xavier. We promise to use this building well for years to come. Thank you, and God bless.
So I don't want to, you're not here to hear me speak. So let me, at first, before I introduce Mr. Fernandez or give him the mic, many of you know Father Keenan, but this is Keenan Commons of Fernandez-Duminuco Hall. So now you can put a face with a place. And maybe give Father Keenan a warm welcome as well. Father Keenan was our 29th president. And before he was president, he was headmaster. Before he was headmaster, he was Mr. Keenan, teaching history from 63 to 66. So he has a great history here at Xavier. He taught Mr. Meditz and Moldman, our board chair, who you'll remember from our opening assembly. And take some responsibility. We can, or better yet, we can hold him responsible maybe for what he's turned out. So, and it was Mr. Meditz's generosity along with Mr. Denahan that led to the naming of Keenan Commons. So our thanks to both them. So terrific to have Mike here. I want to have him share some of his own story with us. We'll have a little time for questions and take it from there. Mike Fernandez.
I get very sentimental when I come back here, or a dog put his paw in my eye, so it's one of the two. Thank you for having me here. I want to share with you how sometimes people underestimate who you are and who you are going to be. I certainly underestimated the blessings that I have received all of my life. And those blessings became very apparent when I started coming to the school. And just like this meeting means almost nothing to you, because you will remember very little about this except the fact that you got some time off from school to listen to a former student of this school. This school has a way of getting under your skin, has a way of entering your soul, your brain. It's going to be with you for the rest of your life. It certainly happened to me. This is how I came into Xavier. This is how serious I was. This is, I have no idea what the occasion was, but it was in my sophomore year in this school. That is my senior year. And the transformation occurred without me even knowing it. It's interesting because as a result of being here today, a lot of my classmates received information about me, and my perception of myself was that I went through school unnoticed. I was a kid that barely anyone knew. I copied homework just about every single day. I was a C student at the very best. I had the good fortune that a great man noticed that possibly I had some potential, and that was Father Vince-Dominuco. To the point that I was asked to go to his office at least 2 or 3 times a week and sit there, and I expected that he was going to talk to me about algebra, that I was terrible at, chemistry, which I was terrible at. I was good at geography, and my favorite class was Spanish because I could already speak it. But he never talked to me about class, he talked to me about values in life. Last year, I spoke at 46 universities, and I'm not a professional speaker. I do not get paid for speaking, nor am I good at it. And people ask me from time to time, did you get to where you are today because of values that you had to sacrifice? And the answer is just the opposite. I got to where I am today because of the values that I live by, that I was not willing to compromise. Those values are given to you at home, you learn at school, and it's interesting that when we do something that is wrong, we know it. And we have to rationalize to ourselves while we're doing it. Well, I pushed him because I thought he was going to push me. Or I didn't do homework because my parents needed me to do something else. Yet, when you do something good, you don't have to rationalize anything. It just feels good, doesn't it? When you do something good, it just comes naturally, and it's almost like you want to do it again. But sometimes it's not cool to do things that are good. It is very cool to do things that are very, very good. And it almost acts like a drug, and I will tell you this. I've learned very early on, coming out of this school, coming out of the Army, that taking care of someone else for no reason whatsoever was a tremendous good drug to get addicted to. That feeling of doing something for someone who could do nothing for you could be the definition of being a person of character. When you do something for someone that can do nothing for you. I learned it here in this school. That's my wife, Constance. I think she's gorgeous. So did the Miss America contest. She was Miss Michigan at one point. University of Michigan fan. As a matter of fact, our youngest son has Mason blues all over his colors and UM all over his colors. And for the first few years, I thought she was referring to the University of Miami. It was the University of Michigan. She's a fanatic, and the fight at home is, how do I unbrainwash my son about going to where there's a lot of snow and I don't want to go there? She has been not only a great wife, but a great mother, a great stepmom, and a great daughter-in-law. She's a great person overall. These are my parents, and I think you should know that behind that silly face that you saw in the first slide, there are some people that have tremendous values. That's my sister on the left. She's 2 years younger, but I always tell her she's 5 years older. My mother's 86, my father's 89. That's at our house in Coral Gables, Florida. That man taught me a great lesson out of many. I was offered a scholarship once to come to this school. And I went home and I asked if we needed to take the scholarship, and my father was thrilled to understand that and tell me how we had just arrived from Cuba, and getting the financial aid would have been great. And he asked me, are you getting a scholarship because of your grades? And I said, nah, this is the first year, and they don't even know what my grades are. But there's this other guy named Al Roker and I think there are a few others that were offered a scholarship. And he asked me, how does that work? And I said, I think a bunch of white guys feel guilty about what they did to us, and I really don't know what they did to us. So this scholarship is offered. And he asked me again, he said, because of your grades? And I said, no, my grades have always been mediocre. And we were having dinner, and he put down his fork. And he asked me, only in a way a father who's mad at you can ask, stand up. And when I stood up, he said to me, you're not missing an arm or a leg. You don't take charity. You get a job and pay half of the tuition, I pay the other half. Through my 4 years at Xavier, I had a job at the New York Psychiatric Institute at 169th and Riverside Drive. And on weekends at the American Museum of Natural History. I was able to save some money. That was pretty cool that in my junior year, I was driving a little Triumph Spitfire to school. It was a tiny little car that I had. Thanks to the values that I learned from my dad, thanks to the values that I learned from this school, I was able to accomplish some things that otherwise I would not have ever accomplished. This is my family. Average family, except even in blessed families, there are problems. See, that's my granddaughter, Daniela. And Daniela had to have surgery, open heart surgery at 18 months because she was in bad shape and it was either live or die. But when the surgery happened, they also found out she had something different. All of us have a spleen. She has 11 of them, but they all work as one. 11 tiny little spleen that work as one. If you don't believe in miracles, ask a doctor to explain how that happens. Daniela today is healthy. She loves horses. She is a terror in the family. I wish she would get a fever once in a while to slow her down, but it's not going to happen. My daughter, Michelle, behind her brother, George. You'll see him later, maybe tomorrow, or tonight, I'm sorry. My other son, Alex, in the back. I'm the one with the black pullover and the white stripes. My wife is in front of me. That's our home. I know nothing about sports. Zero. Absolutely nothing about sports. But I happen to have a neighbor named Pat Riley. And actually, we were here in New York a few years ago, and everyone around, we went walking for breakfast, and everyone around where we were walking down, I think it was 57th or 58th, they would, hey, Coach, hey, Pat, they know you here. He goes, dude, I was the coach for the Knicks. Were you popular? He goes, no, they hated me here. The importance of networks. Part of what you will learn in school is very important, but the network is going to be more important. The people that you meet is more important. in any deal that I've ever done, and I'm primarily a business guy, I have grown 27 companies, 2 have failed, 25 have succeeded. 90% of every one of those transactions were driven by relationships. Small percentage was driven by what I knew and what I thought I could do with those businesses. So one day, about 5, 6 years ago, we had an idea about developing an insurance company focused on patients that had HIV/AIDS. And one of my partners says, look, there's a reason why there isn't one anywhere in the country. It doesn't work. And I said, no, it's got to work. We started to launch the company, and we needed a spokesperson. So we have a place in northern Florida where we raise cattle as a hobby. The hobby has turned into a business with about 20,000 cattle now. And at this time of the year, it's closer to 40,000 because they birth during October and November. So I'm up there with my youngest son, Christopher. I'm in a hunting stand with binoculars looking at little fawns because it's also the time of the year that deer have their babies. And my phone goes off, and it was a text from one of my partners, and he says, how about Magic Johnson as the spokesperson for this plan? And I wrote back, who's Magic Johnson? By the way, Magic gets a much bigger thrill out of telling this story than I do. And he said, ask your buddy Pat. So I copy, paste, send, or maybe paste, copy, paste. Is that the way it is? Yeah, okay. And I sent it to my buddy Pat. Pat says, call me tomorrow. So I called him the next day. It was a Sunday. I said, Pat, we're trying to do this, and they asked me to talk to Magic Johnson. Do you know him? And Pat said, if I did not know you, that the fact that you don't know much about sports, I thought you were kidding. Yeah, I know him. What are you trying to do? So I tell him, look, we want to develop an HIV plan for HIV patients. And I'm told that this thing will not work, and I think it will work. He says, let me talk to him. Later on that day, I get a call from Pat. He says, look, call Eric Holloman, who's the president of Magic Johnson Enterprises in California. They like the idea. They're going to call you tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. My idea of Hollywood calling me was Entourage with a guy named Ari, and they were never going to call me. At 9 o'clock in the morning, the phone rang, and it was Eric Holloman. I go through the story and tell him what the business plan is, and he says, look, we like it. And I spoke with Lon Rosen, who is the financial guy for Irvin, or in this case for Magic, and he liked the idea. So do you mind if we get Irvin on the line? So they get this guy Irvin on the line, and I go through the whole pitch again. And they were obviously excited about the product. And I'm on the other line after telling the story 3 times. And I said, look, I'm glad you guys are happy, but I'm really more interesting is, what does Magic think about this? I had no idea that Magic was Irvin, and he was on the call all the time. We've become great friends, and he is an investor with me, and I'm an investor in him. And we have some very interesting businesses going on, including raising a multi-billion-dollar fund to basically take over cities that are failing because of mismanagement. So that relationship has moved from healthcare into other social services that are very much needed. Bureaucracies are not very efficient. Embarrassing to say this to someone who came to Xavier, never made it through college. Had 1 semester of college. And at the time, there was a draft for military services. And I was drafted to go into the Army. And if you were drafted, you had to do 2 years of service, but they selected what job you would do while you were in the Army. I've never enjoyed being told what to do, including while I was here. You could volunteer, and you would have to do 1 or 2 extra years, but you could pick what you wanted to do. I've always been afraid of heights, and having a low IQ, I chose to be a paratrooper. In that picture, by the way, that's one of 3 honorary degrees that I have, and that one is an undergraduate degree, but before that I was able to get 2 graduate degrees. So even getting my degrees, I did it backwards. I got my master's, honorary master's, and then I got my undergraduate degree. I should have put the picture of Bill Clinton last Sunday at my house, and the dog, the tan one, This is a breed called King Shepherds. They weigh between 140 and 170 pounds, and we have 3 of them. And my daughter walks around with Lobo. She even takes him to school. I don't know how she did it, but she got him certified as a service dog. So all through law school, she went through, this guy is a protection dog. She goes with her everywhere she goes. The teachers even allowed her to take it up to the stage when she graduated from law school. And that dog had more attention than most of the other students or teachers ever got. But last Sunday, we happened to have Bill Clinton at the house for about 3 hours. And he heard my daughter go by, and the dog just kind of walked in, and that dog went right for Bill and just sat in front of him, looked at him, and he asked, "Can I touch him?" I said, "Yes, but don't touch him on his head." The first thing he did was he put his hand on the dog's head. Says, "Good puppy." And this dog is going, "Arr." Great animals. Oh, another picture there. But here's a guy that is a brave guy. You guys recognize this guy? So, well, what is that sound? I heard a sound. What was it? So, I was hiking. Have you heard of the Way of St. James? Have you heard about it? Any of you? The Way of St. James is something that at least one person in this room has heard about it besides me, and that is Jack. It is a pilgrimage taken, and it goes back over 1,000 years from southern France across the Pyrenees Mountains, and then you will make a right when you get to the town of Pamplona, which is known for the running of the bulls once a year, first week of July. And I was doing it to raise money for a children's hospital. And I started to write emails about children that were terminally ill. And there was one person that responded to some of those emails, and I noticed, it caught my eye, it said Xavier. And it was Jack. We talked, I think through the email, I don't think we ever talked in person until afterwards. And I said, "Why don't you join me?" And he said, "I can't, school has just started." So I said, "Once in a lifetime, you got an offer to join me. Transportation is paid for. A driver will wait for you in Madrid. They will drive you to where I am, and we can hike together for a week." He goes, "Mike, let me see, I have to look at, sounds like a good idea." 2 days later, the guy showed up in Spain. And can I tell you something? Never underestimate a guy by the amount of hair he has. That guy put me to shame. He could beat me every day. He hiked longer, faster, and did more things during that week that we walked together. But it was a wonderful week. We had never met each other closely. It's an invitation out of the blue. And we got to know each other very, very well. And I got to love, he's a very lovable guy. You may think that he has a 2x4 getting ready to hit you on the side of the head, but he's a wonderful guy. And all he talked about was his family at home and his family here. And that is you. You have a family that takes care of you, thinks about you, and when your school day ends, it doesn't end for them. Every night he was on the phone, although he had walked 25 miles every day on the average with a backpack, he would call and follow up on issues primarily with people, his students. He deserves the recognition like Father Keenan, like everyone that has come to the school and devotes their time to the school. They devote their time to you. That is why you will remember them years from now when you least expect it. This is the first day when we met, when he arrived in the city of León in Spain. and he had to get his passport. So whenever you start this hike, from wherever you started, they give you a passport. And every night, when you stop, wherever you're going to spend the night at, they stamp the passport for you. And at the end of this hike, they actually give you a certificate that is written in Latin. So for those of you who don't take Latin, there is a place that they still use it. Jack has this big certificate issued by the Catholic Church, says that he has completed the pilgrimage of Santiago de Compostela. 250,000 people do this every year. I've done it 4 times. I love the solitude, and I love meeting the people that I meet along the way. I prefer to do it alone, except for 1 week when I'd like to have someone with me. The people that you meet along the way is quite interesting. Jack and I were walking up this mountain to a place called the Iron Cross, and it's like a giant telephone pole with a cross on the very top. And people from all over the world go there, normally with a rock or a handkerchief with the name of someone that means something to them. Could be a child that died, their child. Could be a spouse they're having problems with. And when they get there, they take this rock or this item and they throw it on the ground at the base of this cross. And this cross, this pile now is about 15, 20 feet high. And they clear it every few years. But it lets them and let me at that point kind of unload that burden for some reason and move on. And it's a pivotal point in the journey of 500 plus miles. When we were walking up this hill, it was foggy, it was misty, it was wet, and I wish I had a heater with me because it was cold. But in front of us, you could see this fluorescent green item that kept fading in and out based on how much fog was rolling in. And as we got close to it, we noticed that it was a woman. And as we passed her, we noticed that it was a woman carrying all of her belongings on her back, including a tent, sleeping bag, canned food, change of clothes. And as we passed her, as we said to everyone, they said to you, buen camino, good journey. We passed, but we were not on the top of the hill, we were halfway there. And I think we both felt guilty that she was alone, so we went back and offered to help her with her backpack. We helped her and we got to the very top, and she said, I cannot go on anymore. I will spend the night here. And the wind was blowing. I could not imagine what would have been sleeping on the ground where she slept. And Jack and I kept going. 2 days later, sitting under a bridge, having breakfast, we see this woman come by. And her name was Helen. She was German. So went to talk to her. Said, Helen, good to see you. And she had a big smile. Her teeth were in terrible shape. Her skin was ash. I said, are you okay? She goes, yeah, I'm okay. I said, you want to join us for breakfast? Yes, I have no appetite. Helen, come on, sit with us. Okay. So this is her story. The year earlier, she had started to do this hike, this pilgrimage. And when she was just 80 miles away from ending it, she received a call from Germany that her mother had passed away. So she went back to bury her mother. Well, she went back and tried to put things in order for her mother and her family. She was told she had terminal cancer. And her goal was to finish that hike. But she did not begin where she stopped. She began where it begins. And here's a woman that says to us, if it wasn't because of you guys, I would have never lived to see the ending to this journey. The people that you meet will break your heart and will make your day. If you have never done this, think about doing it someday with your friends, your family. My wife has done it with me. Some of my children have done it with me. It'll be great, Mr. Gross, if you're here somewhere, to gather some students and do it one day as a group, or Jack. He can do it. He can do it. Here's Jack walking with another guy. This guy whose name is, it wasn't Stephen. Stephen was from Scotland, was a writer. And this is the kind of trail that you're hiking most of the time. This is Loyola. the birthplace of St. Ignatius. I did not see Father Dominuco for about 30 years after I left the school. As it happens, you move on, your life takes on a different dimension. And it was my son's Alex's graduation, also at a Jesuit school in Miami. Much to my surprise, the guest speaker, the keynote speaker, was Father Dominuco. And we reconnected there, to the point that as everyone left the stage, I made my way up to the stage. And Father Dominuco's back was towards me, and I'm coming this way, and I could see the school president telling Father Dominuco, Mike Fernandez, who is someone that's close to the school, is coming towards you. So as I'm right behind Father Dominuco, I stretch my arm out to shake his hand, and he doesn't shake it back. And he looks at the principal and said, Father, his name is not Mike Fernandez. After 30 years, his name is not Mike Fernandez. His name is Miguel Fernandez. He remembered. I was shocked. And he said, you validated everything I thought about you when you were having detention in my office. The moment I walked into this school and your name is over the building. I know you could do it. Validation. He knew where I was going, and he hopefully prayed that I would get to where I wanted to be. A few years later, I received a note from Father Dominuco. And there was a little box that he sent DHL, and he said, I have terminal cancer. Inside of this box is my crucifix that I've had ever since I was a seminarian. If it was homework, I would not give it to you. But it's a mission, and I know that you will get it done. After I pass, take this to my home in Loyola. So Loyola is about 180 miles round trip, walking or driving, but walking. And that's the journey that I took to deposit his crucifix, not at the altar, but I gave it to the Jesuit who's in charge of the school. This is the place where in you rest. This is a sculpture when he's wounded by the French in the defense of Pamplona, where the Spaniards lose, and a cannonball hits him in one of the legs. But he fought with such bravery that the French carried him back to his family from Pamplona, which is a long, long way. It's a very moving place, very somber, quiet, but with a sense of dignity, which is very similar to the sense of dignity that I saw when I first saw a student from Xavier in the subway when I was an 8th grader, not knowing where I wanted to go to school at. That presence that Father Dominuco had, he received from the founder. That presence was given to me as a gift by my time with the Jesuits. And you may be 90 years old someday, and you will be surprised how much of the Jesuits you have into you. And it is a great gift that no one can take away, but it is your job to be men for others. We all leave a shadow as we walk. Here's Jack and I. You can see it's early in the morning because the sun is just rising. It is that personality that has allowed me to make friends throughout the world. Shimon Peres became a friend 21 years ago. He passed away about a month ago. And the last time I saw him was in Israel in May. I would go see him every May. And sitting with him, just him and I, and he's fragile, he's old. Here's a man who was the founder, one of the 3 founders of the State of Israel, former head of the armed forces, prime minister twice, president once, statesman, Nobel Prize winner. And I'm sitting there with him and I go, Shimon, is there something you wish you had done that you did not do? And I just think about this man and what he has accomplished. And he grabs the armrest on the chair that he's at. And with his fragile arms and his hands, he kind of puts his fingers right into it. And he pulls forward, and his face is maybe inches from mine, and he says, I should have thought bigger. I should have dreamt bigger. It's humbling that we set our sights down here when our potential is an exponential number of that. We have incredible potential. I never thought I was going to be here today, but I was because of what I learned in this school. This is my Harvard. This is my Princeton. This is my Yale. This is my school. This is who I am. And what I do for others, I learned it here. Learned it some at home, but I learned it here. And we have to think about it. Yesterday, I was sitting at the White House at a meeting that I was called at. I think I'm one of these guys. Where am I? Right over there, across from the president. And they called me and said, look, we want you to get together. But normally when they call me at the White House, it's a National Security Council meeting. Normally he's not there, although he has participated in some meetings. And when I get there, my wife is with me and my son George. And they take him away and they said, you're about 2 minutes late. The president is waiting for you. So I walk into the Oval Office. He's behind his desk. And he stands up, he goes, dude. I go, wow. President's calling me dude. I felt like saying, but I did not. And I spent 45 minutes one-on-one with the President of the United States, talking about issues, about what he's going to do after he leaves office, where he thinks I could help him. It's humbling, regardless of what you have achieved, to be in the office of the most powerful man in the world. And he's calling you dude. And you're calling him Mr. President. This is about a year ago, where the prior year I was born in Cuba. And I'm not a fan of the Cuban government. It's a dictatorship. But they asked me if I could help them by participating in meetings that had to do with Cuba. So I had 16 trips from the US to Cuba in anticipation of the president's trip, which I was with him when we landed. And it was, whether I agree with President Obama or not, is not President Obama who was asking me. It is the office of the president. And being a US citizen, it is my obligation to give back, the same way as it was my obligation to jump out of airplanes. And he actually, this picture was taken and he sent it to me after the trip to Havana and said, thank you for your service. You went beyond the call of duty. Here we are in Havana. So I've met him the first time. I'm at a National Security Council meeting. I'm the only guy who doesn't work for the White House. And there are 12, 13 people in this meeting. And the president walks into the Situation Room where we're at. Everyone stands up. I stand up. And Ben Rhodes, who is the head of his National Security Council and Security Matters, and I have had some conversations. And I've always said, I'm not a fan of the president's policy except for two. So the president walks into this room and he says, hey, everybody, have a seat. So we all sit down. But he starts walking right towards me, and by the eye contact, he's looking at me. So I push back from the table, I stand up, and he says to me, Mike, so I understand you don't like me. I said, no, Mr. President, I think you're a really nice guy. I just don't like your policies. He says, which policies do you like? Any? I said, yes, sir, two. You went after Osama bin Laden. You lifted the embassy sanctions that we had on Cuba. Now we have at least dialogue with Cuba. And that's about it. He says, is there a third one? I said, well, you almost had it when you talked about immigration reform. You had the House and the Senate, and you walked away from the promise. He says, fair enough. Then he looks at Ben Rhodes and says, he does speak his mind. From that point on, wherever I was, including this meeting where Just like when I was here, I always sat in the back of the class not to be seen. So there were maybe 200 people, and I was standing in the back, and he goes like this, he goes, Mike! To the point that afterwards I asked Ben Roach, hey, does he wear an earpiece that people tell him that's Mike back there, whoever it is? And Ben says, look, at events he does, but he remembers you because you told him what most people would not have told him. You told him what he thought. We live in an incredible country, and you are beneficiaries of that. I live in a country, or I was born in a country, where when you're born, you're given 2 pieces of paper, your birth certificate and a rationing card, who tells you or states what you're going to eat for the rest of your life. We don't have that. It's far from perfect, but there isn't anything better. We live in a great country. We have an obligation to make it better, but there is not one better. We can make this one better. That was my last time that I went to Cuba. I'll be going back on November 29th through the 2nd, taking a delegation from another branch of government. Actually, if she wins, Hillary's group that will take over where the president's leaving off on the Cuba policy. So I expect to be involved with that. And you wonder at times, how did a high school kid from Washington Heights, without a college education, how did he get here? And I ask that at times, how did I get to meet Shimon Peres and be driving with my wife and my children from Jerusalem back to a meeting in Tel Aviv, and we're going to be late, and 2 helicopters land beside the expressway, and a pilot gets out, or a co-pilot gets out and says, Mr. Fernandez, we don't want you to be late, please get in. How does that happen? How does it happen that my daughter goes to Africa to work in an animal rehab camp, and I'm concerned about her safety, and I get a call from the Israeli Mossad saying, hey, your daughter is off the reservation. She went to a beach. Call her and ask her to go back. How do I get to know President Obama? How do I get to know President Bush, Governor Bush, Governor Romney? It came from this school. People see you, they recognize whether you're a person of trust, of values, of honesty, of integrity, of love. It came from here. You have what I never had, plus more. And I have some of what you have. What you can do is make me look dumb by your accomplishment. It is within you. And it all comes from here. Not Regis, not Fordham, here. I was selling a company a few years ago, and the managing partner for that company, his name is Marty Mannion, and he went to Regis. And he said, hey, I read that you went to Xavier. I went to Regis, and then I went to Fordham, and then I went to Yale. We're going to beat you. Okay. When we bought the company, I said, I'll sell it to you now. We beat him. It comes from here, the confidence this school gives you. So I've spoken enough about what it means to me to be here and why it's important to you, never to forget where you came from. And I'll just leave it at that and ask you, be grateful that you are here. Be grateful that you're a citizen of the United States of America. Never hold back about serving your country and serving the people who need things that you have. And be generous until it hurts. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a little nervous because I never know what material I'll give Mike today that will come back to haunt me. I mean, dude, what's going on? So, thank you, Mike. That was That was terrific on really behalf of all of us. I want to do a presentation now that Mike missed when he missed the dedication, all right? So you'll remember we presented President's Medals at the dedication liturgy and then at the Mass of the Holy Spirit. You've heard the first part, but Mike hasn't, so I'll read the first part. The President's Medal was established to recognize outstanding service to Xavier, as well as outstanding service to the community. The medal bears the likeness of Father John Larkin, who in 1847 ventured down from the Bronx to found the College and Church of St. Francis Xavier. His faith in the work was steadfast, and his commitment to the young institution deep. So deep that when fire destroyed the first school building, he defied his superiors and instead of returning to the Bronx, found another path forward. The medal will be awarded by the president of Xavier High School to those whose service to Xavier or the community at large is exemplary and of particular merit advancing the common good. The first president's medals were awarded upon the dedication of Fernandez-Duminuco Hall. Mike Fernandez, class of 72, carries the lessons he learned from his headmaster, Father Vincent Duminuco, with him to this day. Lessons about integrity, hard work, ethics, generosity, and humility. Lessons about being a good man. His faith in Xavier and his gratitude to Father Duminuco brought our new building to life. The inscription on the medal reads, "Loyal son, outstanding friend, generous benefactor, pilgrim on the way." The President's Medal was awarded, and now he's actually receiving it, on September 15th, 2016, to Miguel Mike Fernandez, 1972, for the greater glory of God. So, part of it, I wish we could have like a party now. But I have to send you back to class. What time is it? Ms. Lavigny, what time is it? How late are we into this period? We're 10 minutes late. Okay. So we'll sing before we go momentarily. We'll sing Sons of Xavier, because that's a good thing to sing. Some of you need to get books because you came straight here, so don't dilly-dally. If you have questions for Mr. Fernandez or you want to say hello, he's here. Some of you will join him for lunch in Arupe Library at 11:30. If Mr. Capps didn't invite you to lunch, I told him to invite everybody. So take it up with him if he was chintzy on the invitations. So we'll see some of you at lunch with Mr. Fernandez, and we will go from there. Let's stand and sing. Sons of Xavier, keep marching on to victory, with colors flying guidance high. Stand so all the world can see, we're with you onward to glory. Loyal sons and true, maroon and blue, we'll see you through, we'll fight for you. Okay, thank you. Be seated. Let's try to get out of here somewhat orderly. The guys here on this side, why don't you dismiss first? Mr. Fernandez is here if you want to check in. And lockers and then class. Thank you, Father Keenan.
Thank you.
Okay. See? Worth things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to be in this room, though.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah. Hi, guy.
Thanks, Ralph.
I'll see you later.
Okay. If some of you guys want to use these stairs and go to 2 and exit that way, feel free. Or go to 5